Welcome back, everybody, to The Deep Life. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Lynn Anderson. And Dr. Lynn is a naturopath, yoga nutrition therapist, fitness professional, karma master, published author, international speaker, video producer with over 30 years of experience in the field of natural health and fitness. So welcome, Dr. Lynn, to The Deep Life podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. I'm excited to talk with you guys today.
Oh my gosh, it seems like your resume is just booming and in alignment with so much of the philosophies that Dan and I speak so passionately about. But we'd love for you to share with us and our audience a little bit of background. It seems like you've been doing this for decades. Has this always been a passion of yours? How did this come about in your life?
Well, I go back to I was a single mother, two children, trying to put myself back through college and finish my education, which was a tremendous undertaking. I didn't have any money. No money. I'm doing it on a wing and a prayer, as they say, little bartending, watching the kids doing all of this stuff. And when I finally got through that, you can imagine there was kind of like a burnout because I had been going just a full speed to get through this whole thing. And I kind of collapsed. And I realized as I was collapsing that something had to change. I had to be able to bring myself back and bounce back. I had two kids to support. I had to get a job. I had to pay the bills. Things had to happen. And that is kind of what got me into the natural health field, looking into how, I could take care of myself physically and mentally and soulfully. And that led me down this path into getting involved in health and fitness, beginning as an instructor. And then I went back to school to get a master's and a PhD. That happened over the course of several years, part-time. And then became a yoga therapist, and everything kind of evolved from there.
Beautiful. It feels like kind of life presents us with challenging times, and it seems like you and we kind of try to entertain this philosophy as well. So life is happening for us, not to us, and it can be hard to no pun intended here, can be a hard pill to swallow for some people. But your story, as you're saying it, maybe this, you turned your struggle into strife for this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's kind of dive in here to you have a very just interesting background. I kind of want to start perhaps with just kind of the naturopath and finding, I love what you just said, mentally, physically, and soulfully, which those three words just beautifully married together. Can you tell us what that means to you and how that kind of developed in your life after you discovered this?
Well, it's kind of the marriage of naturopathy and yoga therapy, because the naturopathic philosophy is that you are body, mind, and soul, and they are three energies that are integrated, and they all need to be balanced. So if we go out and we pay attention to the body but we don't pay attention to the mind, we're not balancing everything out. So naturopathy comes back and says, well, how is the best way to integrate and balance the body, the mind, and the soul? And that is through the natural sciences. That's what naturopathy is about. It's about using the natural sciences in order to bring balance to the body. And that's exactly what yoga is about as well. So it was my integrating the two, which has just helped me so much in my teaching and my therapy and my writing.
Beautiful. And you use the word integration, which is something that Dan and I beautifully have been learning about integrating. What does integration mean to you? And how can you bring that kind of tangible for listeners? I feel like it's a word that's like, it needs to be embodied and felt in a way. And I would love for you just to break that down.
Yeah. Well, we can go back, and when we don't feel good in our body, say we got something going on in our body, what happens to your mind? You kind of lose that. You don't have that enthusiasm in your mind. And there's something that kind of shadows in there. I call that the soul, kind of sitting back there and saying, hey, come on, guys, let's take care of the body and the mind. I need your help here, because that is the vehicle and the GPS for the soul. GPS, vehicle for the soul. So it's understanding that they are interconnected. There's a thing called synergy, which means that everything in the universe has a synergistic effect. Everything affects everything. We cannot separate anything. And we tend to think of the world in separations rather than understanding that even in the natural world, in the plant kingdom, everything's synergistic. Everything has to work together or you don't have life. So that's what integration means, is really coming together and realizing that everything is connected. We are all connected. What I do affects everything else in the universe.
Beautifully put. Yes.
That's such a great
Oh.
example. I love the example that you used there, where it's like when something's off, and like maybe like your shoulder hurts or something like that. It's hard to be yourself. And I know that's maybe like an abstract content or concept for a lot of people, but it's like if you're focused on the pain or you're focused on like something is wrong, then we really do get pulled out of like the essence of who we are.
Exactly. And we all know, all you need to do is get a cold or get the flu, and your mind goes and your energy goes and everything goes. And if you really take a good look at it, you'll say, wow, I've got these three systems here, and I need to bring all three of them back to balance. It's not enough just to bring the body back. The mind and the soul have to come into balance too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to jump into kind of the yoga aspect of this. I have newly fell in love with yoga. Dan is a personal trainer and has been for over a decade. And I typically was someone who, yes, in
Yay!
I've been his first client, his guinea pig with all of the diet and lifestyle, but I've typically for probably the last 10 years just worked out very, very hard, almost too hard. But the stubbornness of kind of really mentally, what I was thinking is this has worked in the past. I've lost weight. I've been physically fit and tough. And I think I just shot my nervous system to a point of complete freeze where I was actually gaining weight from, the diet and lifestyle that I had produced. And Dan and I went to a just a wellness retreat in Costa Rica last year, and it was a week of yoga. And Dr. Lynn, the first session that we did with our yoga teacher, I was laying in Shavasana and I just felt the life force energy, the chi back in my body, just beautifully, rhythmically pulsating. And I was like, wow. And since getting back since last November, that's predominantly pretty much all I've done is yoga and Pilates with a little bit of weight training here and there. And it has just been almost this beautiful integration of the release that I needed, I think, to probably get my nervous system back on track in that relaxed state instead of the constant fight, flight, freeze type of thing. So I'd love to kind of dive into that a little bit and how yoga can be so restorative, but also your expertise on the patterns, connecting to breath and what this does for our mind and balance of our body, but then internally trusting my system that I'm going to be able to hold these poses.
Well, first off, in yoga, karma yoga, we would call what happened initially to you is greed. And when I say the word greed, people go, I'm not a greedy person, right? I'm not greedy. But in yoga, greed means pushing yourself beyond that point, pushing and pushing. And whenever we get greedy in any aspect in our lives, in the world, there's always a problem. There's always something gets hurt, right? Somebody gets hurt. For greedy corporations, somebody gets hurt. You push your body and your mind too much, you're going to get hurt. And then you're going to retract. When you retract, it's much harder to get back up. That's why yoga says life should be lived on a balance, everything in moderation. And if we moderate everything and we bring everything into balance, then we have perfect health. And then we don't tip over into that greedy place. Now, coming back to that with the breathing and everything, the reason the breath is so important in yoga and so important in your health is that's how you drive nutrients and blood and everything to your vital organs. It's very important. And we don't really think about how posture and breathing, simple things like that, affect our health. If you have poor posture and poor breathing, and I'm going to exaggerate and I'm over like this, I'm crushing my vital organs. And whenever you crush something, you can't get fluid in there. So it's important to open everything up and breathe and allow the oxygen to go everywhere throughout your body. Your breath is a wonderful tool. If you have let's say a bad shoulder and you've got a pain in your shoulder, the first thing that happens is we flinch up. But yoga teaches us, take a breath and drive the oxygen to that muscle and let it relax. And when we learn to do that with the breath, which is not easy, because you have to be aware, you have to be consciously aware of what you're doing. You have to stop and think, which is really hard for human beings to do.
I can go out and deadlift, I can do pull-ups, but holding these yoga poses is very challenging, but I'm loving it because it's something different. And like you say, I'm bringing so much conscious awareness to areas in my body that I've never done before.
Exactly. And that's really what yoga is about. It's awareness of yourself, awareness of your energy, awareness of what you're doing in the universe. I'll share with you, I teach classes at Sarasota Memorial Hospital here. And this morning, I have been filling in for the chair yoga teacher. She's been out. So I've been going in and teaching chair yoga. And it's about 30 people, all 77 and above to 90. And I can tell you it's one of the most rewarding classes I've ever taught because there's a smile on everybody's face. They're so appreciative and they're moving. And that's what's really important is you don't have to stop moving at 50. You can move the whole life. It just, and it's so much fun to see them move and smile and laugh and enjoy, and that's what yoga is all about.
I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. We're actually just talking to my aunt about that. Oh gosh, she's gonna kill me if she's listening to this podcast. But she's 70, and I was saying I've been doing yoga because she's like, "Wait, why aren't you working out?" And she's like, "Do I need to go do chair yoga?" But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, she's this pistol fire. She walks like 10 miles a day. I was like, you could probably do chair yoga in 10 years. Come join me right now.
Yeah. Well, the thing about chair yoga is, you do get up and down, and the chair is really there. As I remind everybody, in life, we all can lose our balance a little bit. And we all kind of need something to lean on every once in a while. So there's the chair. Don't be embarrassed. It's something that we all need, figuratively and literally. We all need something to hang on to every once in a while. Yeah.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
You describe so nicely that, just because you're 50, 55, 60 doesn't mean you have to stop working out. Doesn't mean you have to stop, eating a certain way. I'd love to get into that. We always have been very big components of these beautiful human suits or vehicles that are, that we're encompassing our soul, and we're here to experience life and live and, run when we can. It's almost, I feel like a theme that has been coming up for me for months. It's just returning to that childlike innocence that we lost for years. And it's like you said, you don't have to stop working out at, 50. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that and, your expertise or even working with clients, how you possibly, integrate or talk about movement, nutrition, how these things can help aid you in the longevity and sustainability of like a holistic health approach to life.
Well, what we do know, and it's pure science, we know that what you put in the body, energy in, energy out. And we know that the body needs certain nutrients in order to operate properly. And if you don't give the body those nutrients, it's going to eventually have a weakness somewhere because the body it's a machine and it's the fuel you put into it that counts. And it's also the movement that counts. Now, that doesn't mean that and what I say to people is every single decade of your life, you're going to have to make adjustments and you're going to have to learn how to pace yourself. So a good example would be the chair yoga people. I mean, they're still moving, They can't come and do my other yoga class, but that's okay. They've learned through their decades to pace themselves. We all change. The body changes. There is no such thing as anti-aging. The moment you are born, you start aging. And it's a process. And it's being able to sit back and say, well, where do I want to be in this next decade? What can I do to get to this next decade? And how can I adjust? Because again, life is all about adjustment. You better get ready. You better get used to adjusting from a very young age, because that's life, and embrace it rather than fight it.
Yeah, I think so many people run into problems because they're chasing after, something they used to be able to do, or they get discouraged because they can't do the things that they used to do, rather than embracing the things that they can do and continuing to enjoy moving their body.
That's correct. And, we can't, I can't do what I did 20 years ago, and I know that. And for someone my age, I'm in very good shape and I'm still doing a lot of things. But, I used to teach, I teach a yoga class, and I go teach a spin class, and I teach a dance class. Boom, 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 boom. Now it's like, okay, it's yoga today and it's cycle tomorrow. And I have to pace myself because my body is changing. My energy level is changing, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's to embrace that. And you're absolutely right. There's this, we don't like to let go of youth.
Mm-hmm.
We want to hang on to youth, but yoga teaches us that as we move away from that useful thing, what happens is this wonderful thing called wisdom that comes in.
Mm.
Yep.
And when you start to tap into that wisdom, and you can step back and you can go, boy, look at those 40 somethings out there. I remember when I was 40, and you come back and you have that sense of wisdom, then you understand the natural process of life. That's what it's about, is gaining wisdom. Yeah.
That's like another example of balance. And it's like, as you lose some of that like youthful energy, you can replace it with wisdom and kind of stay on that path.
Absolutely. But again, what you do each decade determines how you age. Are you going to age gracefully? Are you going to age with a balance? If you don't pay attention to your diet and your exercise, and you'll appreciate this because you're a personal trainer, it's got to be consistent, folks. You can't do it one week and then quit the next week. People will say to me, oh my God, and I'll share with you, I'm 71 years old, and they will say to me, how do you do what you do? And I say, I do it every day. I didn't start at 20 and say, oh, I'll take a break till I'm 50. No, I did it every day. It's called consistency. If you really want to perfect something in life, you have to practice, practice, practice. And when you think you've got it, keep practicing. It's the key.
Absolutely. If you don't use it, you lose it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you for sharing your age and being vulnerable, that you do not look a day over 55. Like, I almost fell off.
I love you guys.
Yeah, so everybody, if anybody's listening, head over to the YouTube to check this out. But it is beautiful. Like, I know that we're on Zoom. Obviously, this is virtual, but just looking at you, your skin is glowing. The energy that I'm reading, the passion that you're exuding from talking like this, that's something deep within you. Of course, like I said, and you said, we have these beautiful human suits, these vehicles. And when we understand how to actually take care of them, it's honestly letting us get out of the way. The human suit is gonna perfect itself. It's just typically, our ego or smaller mind, whatever you'd like to call it, there's a plethora of different needs, kind of gets in the way sometimes and can be a little bit stubborn.
Well, it's about attitude. When you walk in and you see two older people, both have gray hair, they're both sitting there. One's got a big smile and got a little pep to her step. She looks 20 years younger than the one who's sullen. So it's a matter of attitude. When we look at somebody, I look at an older person who's smiling. I don't look and go, oh, that's an old person. I think, wow, that person's really cute. I think they're cute because they've got that energy, and that's really, attitude has so much to do with how we, move through life.
Absolutely. Mindset plays such a big role in,
Mhm.
like you said, it's physically, mentally, spiritually, and that mental component. Let's kind of dive into
Mm.
that really quickly because, you know, I used to, with Dan's company, he's obviously a holistic lifestyle coach, personal trainer. I used to do the nutrition coaching as part of it. I've stopped that since it, but I began to realize, and please jump in if I'm
Mhm.
incorrect here, but the clients that we were helping at the beginning, the biggest obstacle, like it was almost too simple to give them a workout plan and diet. Like people can follow that. It's the mindset that takes such a hard time to wrap around different and changes. And that's what I felt like I needed to, okay, I'm either not explaining this enough, or perhaps they're teaching me how to understand my mentality around food and lifestyle. And it's allowed me to dive deeper within myself. So let's kind of get into that and what you've experienced maybe with clients or yourselves on how the mental component can really help us on this journey, or to maybe a detriment if it keeps anybody stuck in a way that perhaps isn't for the optimal health of that person.
Right. Well, we live in a world of get rich quick, take care of things. Things are going to happen quick.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? One pill fits all, I mean, we live in that world. And I will tell you that I had many people who would come to me, and it would be a weight issue, whatever it was. And they were looking for Dr. Lynn to pull her magic wand out and tap them on the
Mhm.
head, and it was here. And when I would say to them, well, it's going to take 120 days just to get where we want to go, but you got to follow this plan. They're like, that's 3 months. Aha, and it's like there's no such thing as getting there quickly. And it goes back to consistency. You have to be persistent, you have to be consistent, and you have to really come back. And I think it begins with a love and a caring for yourself. Stop looking out there and trying to do all this good things out there. Come back. And how do you care about yourself? Because if you care about yourself, you will develop the mental attitude to stay with a program. And you know that, what is it in January? How many people join the gym?
Oh,
And
right.
then,
Yeah.
and then they don't even show up. They sign up and maybe one class and then they're gone. So
Mhm.
there is not a huge population of people who consistently come to the gym. But those that do, you can see a huge difference, huge difference.
Yeah. I always tell clients you need to become the version of yourself who's capable of achieving your goals
It,
before you can ever achieve your goals. And I think that's the problem. People sign up for the gym in January, but they don't change who they are.
exactly.
So the gym just becomes a place they're never going to go, just like it was last year.
Exactly.
It's like the
Exactly. Yeah.
consistency actually helps so much, I think, with just changing our relationship to ourselves. Because when you show up every day, then you start to see yourself as someone who goes to the gym every day, which is probably more beneficial than actually the actual workouts.
Exactly. And I tell a lot of people, I say, find something that you really love doing, because that's
Mhm.
going to be number one. And then try to find a teacher or a personal trainer that you really like and you connect with, because you'll come back to connect with that person. And I try to connect with all my students. And believe me, I can't remember their names. I'm not good at names, but I remember something about every one of them. They'll say
Mm.
something and I'll remember, okay, she's got a hip problem. This happened in her family. And I will try to tap in periodically and just a little talk with them. How you doing? What's going on? And I'll remember those things. And that gives them kind of a validation. It gives them a feeling of belonging, and they want to come back. And then I feel like I'm doing my job, because that's what I'm there for. I'm not there to get paid. I'm not there to be a celebrity. I'm not there for anything. I am there to help people. That's my job in life, to help them be healthy. And if I can do that, great.
Yeah.
I love that, and I think it's so clear that you're living your purpose. And I think that that's what Elise was just saying about how like it just radiates off of you. There's so much beautiful energy, and it's like you're doing something right.
Well, I'll share with you something. I was coming out of the hospital today after teaching that class, and I'm walking. I have to walk way over to the parking lot, and I was thinking to myself, I'm the luckiest person in the world. I get to get up and live my passion every day. I love what I do. And it's 30, 40 years later, and I still love what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And I think that's important in life. You've got to find your passion, the thing that really you love doing. And it doesn't matter whether you make money at it, because you will. It'll always come to you. You'll
Mm.
always, something will always happen. You'll always be taken care of if you're following your passion. And, that's really important in life. And so many people get stuck in places and they
Mm.
think they're stuck. And I say to them, well, I was a single mother with 2 kids and no money. I didn't allow myself to get stuck. So don't tell me about getting stuck.
Mhm.
Go to work, figure it out.
Absolutely. I think that that's such a powerful message, and maybe we can dive into that a bit and perhaps talk begin starting to talk about karma, because we haven't discussed that on the show. But I love that share that you did, because a lot also of this podcast is really about self-discovery and self-development. And I've shared this on the podcast. I feel like I'm 37, and I'm just figuring out really who I am. Coming into this, almost, I want to say, a higher version of myself. Not that I am not deeply respectful and have reverence for all of the versions of myself that got me to this point, but they were clouded with many programs and conditions. And like you said, I was we kind of talked about doing things for external love and validation, like the example of us going to the gym. That was certainly me. I'll be my first person to raise a hand. I wanted to look good because I didn't love myself, and I'm still learning that in ways. I love myself much more than I ever have, but there's always more love in there, right? It's an ever flowing well within us.
Right.
So if you don't mind, how did kind of this karmic master that you've become come about? Was that part of your yoga training? And okay, dive into that for us.
Well, what karma means. Karma means, it doesn't mean good and bad. That's pop
Right.
culture karma. Doesn't mean good and bad. That's judgment.
Sure.
And yoga removes judgment. What karma means is cause and effect. If you don't like the effect, look to the cause. And I found that what was happening is things were repeating themselves. Maybe bad relationships, jobs that didn't work, things were happening in my life. And so there was this repetitive thing, and it made me stop and evaluate my life. And that's what kind of got me into the philosophy of karma, because I began to realize, if this is the effect I want, I better pay attention to the cause. I better pay attention to the energy I'm putting out, because that's what it is. The energy I put out comes back. So when we say like good and bad karma, if I were to come on your show here and I was to just be, nasty and mean and just, like this, then what's going to come back to me is you're going to come back and say, wow, Lynn's not, I don't, right? And then I get pushed back. And now I've created my karma. But if I'm open and I'm friendly, and then that's the karma, that's the energy that starts to surround me. And when you push that energy out there, that energy is going to come back to you. And that's really the essence of karma. However, karma does teach us that there are 4 great passions in the world. And these 4 great passions, we all have part of them. And we are here to work on these 4 great passions. And I tapped on one of them, but the first one is deceit. Everyone has an element of deceit they have to work on. You might say, well, I'm an honest person. Well, how many times do we deceive ourselves?
I was just thinking.
Ooh, yeah, that's deceit. That's deceit. Then there's greed. We talked about greed. And then there's anger. Everyone experiences anger. We all know what that feels like. We all, your body tenses up and, there you are in this angry situation. And then the last one is pride. That's the ego coming in, And so we all are presented with these. And our challenge in life is to work through them and bring them to the other side. So if you are working through deceit, for example, can you really sit down and be honest with yourself? And honesty would be, let's say you're repeating the same pattern and you just don't look at it. You just, everybody else is against me. Everything's going against me. When you come back and say, well, wait a minute, maybe I ought to be honest with myself and come back into that, then you can come out of that passion and work through that cycle. So that's what we're here to do. That's it. You're not here to make money. You're not here to do any of that stuff. You can make money, and that's wonderful. And yoga says, go out and make tons of money and then spread it all the way out there into the universe, So that's, it's
going to come right back to you with that energy.
Exactly.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And I love the example that you use there, being honest with yourself. Isn't it funny how us humans, we're probably most dishonest with ourselves because we're masking that. That's kind of maybe perhaps the shadow aspect of who we truly are. It's pushed so far back behind us that we don't want to bring it to the light because we're petrified of what other people are going to think of it. But really, it's our judgment of ourselves. Lived it and have been doing it. But to your point, what a beautiful teacher. And I love this conversation, what we're having, because it just shows the power that we hold as humans to transmute this energy and transform it. That's what alchemy is. It's being, and that's, I think, a big part of this human journey, so that we don't stay stuck and, wallow away and woe is me and be so judgmental of ourselves. It is to live this really fulfilled, purpose-driven life, but we tend to sometimes, I believe, get very caught up in the aspects that are unlovable about ourselves.
Well, that's karma. It's the repetitive circle of karma. We keep spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. And it's very easy to point the finger and feel the victim in life. Yes. And there are no victims. There are no victims. You have to come back and you have to pull back into yourself and come through and process all of that within yourself, and then decide, what path do you want to take? And hopefully you'll find that passion, that path that takes you. And that's because we're here really to experience joy. And karma teaches us that the greatest percentage of our karma goes into destroying joy. That's what humans do. And if you think about it for a minute, we're always pushing things down and looking at the negative things in life, and even pushing things down on other people. Say other people have something wonderful happen. Jealousy comes in. That's another one of the passions, and pushes it down. When our goal is really to find joy in each and every part of life. And when we do that, think about the moments that you feel joy. Fabulous.
Why do you think we do that as humans? I'm just curious, because
I feel like even when we enjoy something, it's like, okay, on to the next thing. Like, it doesn't last for
Right. Well, that's part of, yoga, where constantly desires and chasing. And that's one of the things. As long as you keep chasing those desires, you're never happy. Happiness is being content and being at peace with what's in your life right now, because what's in your life right now has great opportunity to teach you. And even the things that come in that we don't want to come into our life. Let's say you go through a very nasty divorce and you're like, why? I don't want. There's a lesson to be learned in that. And if you can find the contentment and peace in that and find the lesson, you've worked your karma. That's what it's all about.
Beautiful. Yeah, there's so much, like I said, empowering nature to that instead of becoming victims to our circumstances, understand that there's a lesson and become the victor of it.
Exactly.
I'm learning it. There's certain things that have happened over the past few years that have been tremendously difficult, and I am seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but it can be very challenging. I want to just speak for myself, that when you're in it, it's almost like you can't even put your head above the water. But never once as awful as I have felt, it really isn't the best feeling to be a victim and to blame everybody. It kind of gets exhausting. I don't know what you think or how you feel about, clients of yours, but it's kind of exhausting.
It is very exhausting.
And it depletes my energy.
And where does it get you? You spin. you know, and you spin deeper and deeper into that negativity. And then people see you as that negative person, always the victim, always the victim. And then people don't want to be around you. People don't want to offer you jobs. People don't want to offer you opportunities. The things start, and then we dig ourselves deeper and deeper rather than coming back and saying, well, wait a minute, maybe that's the energy I'm putting out, you know? And that's really, karma is really a way of life. It's a living your life with awareness. Awareness, not of what, yeah, you should be aware of the world out here, but it's really awareness of what's going on in you and what you are doing. Because when you're aware of yourself and your energy, then you can objectively look out at the world. And that's what we should do. Observe the world, you know, and see where you can make a difference. Because that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really our inner world dictates the outer world, and the transformation. We use the word, when I say we, Dan and I use the word transformation because that's kind of how we feel internally will provide external changes. I think what so many humans are trying to do is change themselves. It's kind of, do you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is? He's saying like you're matter trying to change matter. So it's like you're trying to change something in the external world, but it's not working because what you need to do is realize that you are energy. You're an energetic being, as we're saying. You were souls within this human suit or vehicle, this machine, so beautifully here. And how does that speak? It's not in material, it's literally energy, and energy is information. So actually, if you don't mind, because Dan and I talk about this all the time, but now we've got a doctor, and now it's like, okay, we've got the doctor here. So let's talk about energy and how everything is energy and how that's information, because we understand these concepts and we're able to change our frequency and energetic patterns. But for people who are like, wait, what are they talking about? How do I just go from like a victim to possibly, you know, looking on the bright side? How does one begin to change their energy? Is it simply becoming aware?
That's the biggest key, is to become aware, because without awareness, we call this in yoga, we call it ignorance. And that's what it means. You're and ignorance, it's not a derogatory term. It just means you're ignorant. If you're unaware of something, you're ignorant of it. You don't know it. So it's awareness, but then the awareness has to have that inner wanting to change. If I'm aware that my diet is really bad, but I don't have the energy to change it, it's not going to change. I can have all the awareness in the world, but I have to have that motivation within myself. You have to have self-motivation. So it's those kinds of things coming together. You know, everything in the universe is energy. When we look at it, the only reason you and I are visually here is because the molecules in our body are moving at a slower rate. And I'll give you an example of this. If you take water, water's flowing, okay? If you slow down the molecular vibration of water, it becomes ice. If you speed up the vibration, it becomes steam, okay? Body, mind, soul. It's a good way to look at body, mind, soul. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that analogy. Yes, I love that. And using water as that interpretation. That's wonderful.
Do you have advice? Do you have advice beyond just like, I guess, finding awareness? I think, I don't know, back up a little bit. I think that for a lot of people, the concept of just like becoming aware can feel kind of like difficult and abstract. Like, do you have advice for people who are really struggling, who are maybe, you know, like you used to be, where, you know, a single mother, like with no money, trying to, you know, get things moving and take care of your children? Like I feel like a lot of people just feel really lost and really stuck. Like, what's the best advice you could share to help people get unstuck and find their path?
Don't be embarrassed, and reach out and find someone that can help you follow down that path. I mean, I can't tell you the people that have come to me and either been clients or been students, and they're just totally unaware. And through working through and trusting, knowing that they can trust me, that I'm going to help them, that's what it's about. Because trust is very important. you can see the lights coming on and the awareness coming on, and when you get those arms around you and the tears are sobbing down their face and they're like, what you said today just broke through to me, that's how you get to move forward. We do feel as human beings, it's like, well, and this is the ego, I'm not going to show anybody I'm afraid, or I don't believe in myself, and then we have a tendency to puff ourselves up more. That's pride. That's one of the great passions, oh, I'm up here. But it's being aware, being able to be vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. I'm vulnerable. We're all vulnerable, and it's being okay with that vulnerability, because that's part of being a human. As I explain to my students, when karma teaches us reincarnation, karma teaches that we come back to the earth because we have to keep correcting things. And the only way you can come back is as a human being is to accept vulnerability. You got to feel everything. You got to experience all the emotions and all the experiences it takes to be a human being. And those are not all pleasant. They're not. Some of them are not pleasant. But it's telling yourself, I'm going to develop balance, strength, and flexibility as I encounter each of those. It's okay to be vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. Oh,
yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. I love it. And it's about allowing ourselves some grace as we go along this as well, because like you said, it's hard being human.
It's really hard being a human being. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's, I go back and forth from, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I mean, this human body. And then it's like, can I sign up? What am I doing? And you kind of have to chuckle at yourselves. It's like bringing humor into this it can be a heavy experience.
Right. But, we tend to sometimes think, because we pull into ourselves and we put on this mask we don't really want to show, it's like students will come up to me and they'll go, Dr. Lynn, you're always so calm and peaceful. And I say to them, yes, but I have a husband, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have bills, I get sick. I mean, I have a life too. I just have a little bit aware of being able to balance it all out. But all of those things happen to me too. And I have bad days and good days. So it's, it's very easy to look at someone and say, oh, wow, she has it all together and everything, and oh, her life is like this. It's not. Life is like this. It's up and down, up and down. And it's what you do with the ups and what you do with the downs. And you try to ride it in the middle if you can.
Yeah. Well, I think especially like for people on the spiritual path, I think very often we think that we're supposed to be above those down moments, and we don't need to be vulnerable because we're supposed to be better and healed and spiritual enough to handle it. And I think it's important that people hear that no matter how advanced you become spiritually, there's still going to be bad days, and there's still going to be bills to pay and other things to worry about.
Well, that's why I say to my students, practice, practice, practice. Just when you think you've got it, keep practicing. That is life. I have to practice every day my balance. I have to practice my flexibility and my strength every day, body, mind, and soul. If I don't get up every day and work to bring those things together, I'm going to fracture. And I have to consciously think about it every day. It's a process. It's a part of my life. And again, we do sometimes get caught up, and especially today with social media, we can get caught up in social media and it looks like, oh my God, she's so beautiful and he's so handsome and they're doing this and they're so successful. Most of it's fake. Right, folks, it's fake.
Yeah.
Come on back down to earth.
I mean, let's be honest. Absolutely.
Come on back down to earth and look at me without all these cameras and stuff going on, and get into my real life. And I think for many people, it's very hard to see all of that, especially if you don't have the self-confidence or the support behind you, to help lift you up.
Absolutely. And that's typically, I know we didn't get to talk too much before we hit record, but Dan and we've been together 19 years. I think, yeah, we met in high school. And so you can imagine how many, I know. how many different versions of us both individually and then as a couple. And just a fun fact, I do have my certification for past life regressions. And I was in a hypnosis session with Dan, and we were husband and wife in another life, which again could probably be a parallel life if you want to get into like the time realm here, but just shows that I think that we're interconnected, but also like beautifully helping each other evolve and allowing each of us to have this death and rebirth cycle. And I just want to, point out and would love your opinion on this. It doesn't have to be a romantic partnership. I mean, our parents are beautiful teachers with, I believe, are just, I chose my parents as vehicles to learn through. Friends, coworkers, teachers, your students, like I was saying, when I was the nutrition coach, they were really teaching me about myself. We're all in this together, as Ram Dass so beautifully says. We're all just walking each other home and trying to figure out who we truly are.
Very true. Very true. It's very, very true. Karma yoga teaches us that in the reincarnation process, what we do is we go up to this place that's called the holdover place. That's what happens when you die. And you get there and you get to reflect down, and you don't have any emotions. You don't have anything that's human. So again, you have to take all those on to jump back onto earth. But we choose our parents, we choose the nature, we choose our body. That's why you need to love your body, because you chose this body. You chose it. You chose this life. You chose your parents. You chose the situation because it is what will help you expedite working through your karma. Whether you do it or not, karma says, doesn't matter. If you don't, you go back up, you come back down, you go back up, you come back down, but we choose this. And that's why I say when clients will come to me, and, a lot of times it's women, oh, my hips are too big, or and I say, you chose this beautiful body. This is beautiful. And I remember one girl, she was a young girl, she was a lovely young girl. And she came up to me after class and said, oh, my hips are too big. What can I do about them? And I said, I've never noticed your hips, but I notice your beautiful smile. And she lit up. I said, that's what I notice. Yeah. Your skin and your smile, you're beautiful. Don't worry about it. Just be happy with who you are and embrace yourself and smile and enjoy life, because we're here to find joy.
Oh, God. I just get chills. It's such a beautiful message. And I feel like a beautiful reminder for me that I need to, because how many of us, not only women, but probably lots of men too, that Dan can attest to, that we stand in front of a mirror and we're nitpicking about the things that we don't love. Mind you, yeah, all right, like I really like my hair on this day, but it's conditional. And it really is such a beautiful reminder to speak to our bodies, because they listen. The cells can hear what we're speaking. It doesn't have to even be verbally outspoken, but those thoughts, the internal dialogue that we have, like you said, it's a machine. It's listening to you, and it's going to dictate to you if you think your hips are going to be big, or, my nose is too bad, or like, I got flab on my arms. It's going to say, sure. Okay. That's what we're going to give you.
Right. It's just vibrations of energy going in there. That's really what happens. But, it's one of the wonderful things about aging, especially as a woman, because when we're young, men and women, we do get caught up in the physical, and the comparison. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the mating, and it's nature's way of saying, I want you to procreate. I want you to come together, because we got to keep, nature going. And especially as a woman, as you begin to age and you get older, you look back and you see all of those times when you didn't like the way your hair looked, or this, you're worried about that kind of stuff. And then you go, wow, I was really beautiful back then. I had beautiful skin. I had beautiful hair. I had youth back then. That was beauty. And that's not what we look at as beauty. We look at, how perfect the body is commercially, how we make it, that's what we look at. We don't look at the beauty as the radiance that comes off. And that's what's really, youth is a lot of radiance. And that's what I would say to people out there. Radiate.
I love it. Put that beautiful energy out. Oh my gosh. This has been enlightening. I know that we're kind of wrapping up here, and we want to always, as we do, open the space just to Is there any other words of wisdom that you'd like to share or tie everything together? I feel like you've done such a beautiful job of marrying kind of our inner world to the outer world and our karmic lessons and how we can become the victors of our life and lead with love, really, and in all areas to find, our true happiness and purpose as we continue on an ascension journey. But anything that you want to say that we either didn't cover that you feel is very important?
I think the most important thing for people to understand is that the most important thing in your life is your health, body, mind, and soul. The minute you lose it, I don't care how much money you have. And we can use Steve Jobs as an example. You have all the money in the world. Once you lose your health, you've lost everything. It is truly the most valuable thing in your life. And it's the thing that, we don't think about it till we start to lose it. So the thing to do is every day get up and appreciate your health and appreciate taking care of yourself, because no matter what happens in your life, no matter where life puts you, if you're healthy, you can get through it. You'll get there. That's the important thing in life.
Oh, again, beautiful. It's almost like the universe knew exactly how to end the show. It's gratitude, appreciation. And Dr. Lynn, we're so grateful for you joining us today on The Deep Life. And you're a published author, a TV producer. I mean, your website is tremendous. If people would love to dive deeper into your work, where can they find you? Where can we direct them? Which we will link everything in the show notes.
Okay, they can just go to drlynn.com, and it's spelled out DOCTORLYN.com. And I have an email, info@drlynn.com. They're welcome. If somebody says, hey, I kind of like to just get something, I can send some emails back to people and direct them into things that might be good for them. So yeah, I'm always open.
That's wonderful to know. We will put that all in the show notes. Dr. Lynn, again, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.